Landlords in Alabama lost tens of thousands of dollars by a couple of scammer tenants who haven't paid rent since 2021 and were able to drag out the eviction process for as long as possible. Finally, they're being charged by law enforcement. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's coming out of the state of Alabama. So I know what you're thinking. Alabama, that doesn't sound like a place that isn't landlord friendly. Well, it is a landlord friendly place. So when I talk about these squatter incidents, these scammer tenants, I tell you, this can happen in any state in the entire country because so many places see a landlord-tenant relationship as a civil matter, okay? If you want to get rid of these thieves, you have to go to civil court and sue them or go get an eviction order against them rather than calling them for what they really are. They're thieves, okay? They're scammers. They're fraudsters, okay? They need to be charged with a crime by the police. They're trespassing, breaking and entering, property damage. I can name off a ton of crimes that they commit when they are in these properties. But for some reason, the law or the law enforcement sees it as a different matter. Well, in this case, these people got away with it for 4 years, and now they're finally going to be facing consequences in the terms of criminal charges are being filed against them. So before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like, subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below and let me know what you think. So, do you believe that these scammer tenants, be it people who actually had a legitimate lease or people who just moved in and claimed they had a legitimate lease, do you believe that they should be charged criminally for these crimes that they're committing? I do. I believe that if you have a tenant inside your property and they commit an act of property damage against it, you know, like say they're leasing it from you, they have a lease, right? But then they decide they're going to tear half of your house down. Should they be charged with a crime? Yes, absolutely. Okay? If they committed fraud in order to get that lease from you, should they be charged with a crime? Yes, absolutely. Okay? Law enforcement, their hands should not be tied in these cases, and I hate seeing these people being able to get away with not paying rent for so long. 4 years, okay? 4 years without paying rent. Anyway, let me get into the article and we'll see what it says. This article is coming from fox10tv.com and it says, Baldwin County couple charged with defrauding landlords out of tens of thousands of dollars in rent money. Let's get into it. Baldwin County deputies have arrested a couple they say defrauded homeowners out of tens of thousands of dollars in rent by refusing to pay rent. Investigators say they would eventually move, but only after multiple eviction orders and would then do it all over again at their next residence. Investigators said when the couple would see a negative report to the credit bureaus from previous landlords, they would challenge it, saying it was a mistake and not them. The credit bureaus would remove it and the next property owner would be none the wiser. So this is a new twist, something I haven't heard stated before, and I've always wondered if this would happen. So obviously, right, if you see a negative thing on your credit report that isn't true, you can appeal to the credit bureaus to have that thing removed. Now, do the credit bureaus actually contact the person who put that on there and say, hey, is this real? You know, is this correct? Is this right information or not? I don't think they are, because if they were, this couple wouldn't be able to have those negative hits on their credit report removed, okay? And then the next landlord would know these people are scam artists. These people are garbage. Now, see, this is part of the reason why I believe in strong tenant screening, but if the tenants manipulated the system in order to get their eviction records removed, be it in a place where it is easy to remove eviction records or by contacting the credit bureau and having true information removed, either way, right, the landlord doesn't have 100% of the information needed to make the best tenant screening decisions, and that will always lead to the landlord losing money and accidentally putting scam artists like this into their property. So, you know, this is part of the reason I believe that we have to go above and beyond. You know, like just looking at the credit report isn't enough. Just looking at the credit report isn't enough. So you need to look at their criminal history. You need to look at their credit history. You need to look for any evictions on their record. You need to check their employer, make sure that they are actually employed. Okay? You need to call with a phone their previous landlord and at least verify that that person lived there. Okay, these are a lot of extra things, and it does take time. And I know that it's hard to do, but imagine being in a situation where you have a tenant living in your property for months on end, owing you thousands of dollars, and compare that to the cost of, hey, I took an extra 30 minutes out of my day to do these extra little things to make sure that this was the best possible tenant to put in my unit. Okay? And suddenly you see that, yeah, that extra time and money, it was worth it. So, you know, it does still fall back onto tenant screening in a way. Now, like I said, this whole thing where they're calling the credit bureau, I hadn't heard of that before, but I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of tenants and a lot of these scam artists aren't doing that sort of thing. Baldwin County Sheriff's investigators said Dwayne and Erica Daly developed quite the scheme over the last 4 years. Since 2021, deputies said the couple was able to live for free by not paying rent and dragging out the eviction process, falsifying documents, and lying to property owners. It was thanks to a deputy who works eviction cases that a criminal investigation began. He said they had dealt with the Dalys several times before and realized it had become a pattern. They would rent the place, they would not pay rent, they would come up with reasons why they couldn't, family emergencies, tragedies, things like that, and they would string it along a few months, never pay rent, and then they were just familiar that it takes a few months to get someone evicted, and our deputies would show up, evict them, and they'd move somewhere else, explained Captain Daniel Steelman with the Baldwin County Sheriff's Office. And part of that falls down onto, hey, we're talking about inexperienced, small mom and pop landlords who are more willing to work with a tenant rather than filing eviction immediately. That's why I say you can't be a friend. You can't be nice to these people. You have to file immediately. If you're not able to do it, you get someone to work for you who can. Okay, there's plenty of people out there who will assist you with this eviction process. If nothing else, it will motivate them to pay you quicker if you start the process immediately. If they do end up paying you, you don't have to go through with it, but at least you have the ball rolling. These people take advantage of good-natured landlords, and that's what I don't like. A lot of landlords are good-natured. They want to help the tenant. They want to make sure the tenant doesn't end up homeless, and this is the result. They get taken advantage of. And how do I know this? You know, I'm talking about myself here. When I was inexperienced, I fell for these same exact scams. And you can call me heartless all you want now, but I've lost thousands of dollars on real estate investments gone wrong, on bad tenants, on evictions. And I don't want other landlords who are less experienced than me to go through those same issues. So that's why I bring these articles up. That's why I tell you that, you know, you have to be cold and heartless. This is a business. This is not a charity. You are not a social service provider. You can't help these people. If they're not paying rent, there's a reason why they're not paying, right? If they want a service, which is your housing, they have to pay you. Just like you have to pay, if you want water, you got to pay the water bill. Just like if you're renting a car, you have to pay them to rent the car, okay? If you want food, you got to pay the grocery store. Everywhere you go, it costs money. No one gets to live for free. No one cares. When you own a car and you're making your car payment, nobody cares that, oh, I had a family emergency, I can't make the car payment. They'll come back and repossess that car like that because that is your problem and not theirs. Their problem is the car itself, and they will resell it and make more money off of it when they repossess it. So anyway, tell me what you think of this whole situation. I'll put a link to the article in the description down below.